Welcome to today's Tableau Server Admin User Group session. My name is Mark Wu. I'm the server admin managing a large server with about 30 clusters, about 800 cores. My presentation is Tableau Server Permission Deep Dive. And then we have Tableau's Andrew and Vinod talk about Tableau licensing features. Let's start with permission deep dive. My mouse not moving. I'm going to cover 3 things: project level permission, workbook data source permission, and then matrix permission. There are 2 words came out of my mind always when I think about permission. One is robust. Another one is very confusing. That's how I think about Tableau permissions. Let's look into the key building blocks of Tableau. Site is the segmentation or partition. Even you say you don't use a site, actually you are using a site, at least a default site. All the users, groups, projects are within a site. Nothing can be across the site. For data source workbooks flows, they have to be in project, one of the projects or sub-projects, views as well. Has to be associated with a workbook, and the matrix is based on view. Permission is more like you assign users groups to one of those buckets. Permission happens at all levels. At a site level, Tableau has a site rule. That is the maximum privilege a user can have. For example, Explorer can never save, can never delete, can never set permissions, can never publish anything to a server. That is capped by its site rule. Project permission. There are multiple things in the project permission. I'll show you. The more important is what at the project tab. I'll show you in the demo. Who can view or publish to this project? And then who is the project leader? That is what is most important at a project permission. In a project permission, there are also other tabs, workbook tab, data source, and so on. Those are served as a default when the content published here for unlocked project. If it's locked project, those will be the project for all the content. When I say content, it means no matter the workbook, data source, flow, or later on maybe data rows, and also metrics. Content. Actually, Tableau's permission happens here at the workbook level and data source level. That's where you define who does what. That is where the access control is. But also important to be aware is that end user, the interactors, they can access the content like workbook without any project level permission. Again, your end users, they can access any of your workbook data sources, for example, without any project level permission. Let's start with the demo at the project level permission. Let's say I have I start with look at the project level. Okay, got a bunch of project. By the way, this is a relatively new version, Tableau 2020.3. And if you look at at the project level, look at dot, dot, dot. This is where your permission setting is. You can have the user at the project tab and there are many other tabs. As I mentioned, more important is here, what you want this user to do. Okay, for example, you gave this user publisher 10, for example. You can let this user to be able to view, okay, or publish, or you can set this user as project leader. Okay, a template become administrator. This is relatively new since 2020.1. This is where you control change the project level permission at the project tab. And of course, I mentioned there are other tabs at the project level. This will be served as default permission when the content is published here within this project. Let's say if a workbook is published here, the default permission for the workbook will come from here. Unless this project is locked. If you lock this project, okay, if you lock this project, now they got the option of apply to nested or not. If you lock this project, and then all the content of workbook will follow the permission here. All the content of data source will follow permission here. You set here. Similar, all the metrics in this folder will be enforced with permission here. This is how the project level permission works. Notice right now, you can have permission log, come back again. Permission log, you can have a new feature called apply to nested project or not. Maybe I'll show you another sub project, easier. Project A, which is a subfolder of this nested dash project. At the project A, if I check permission, this permission is locked. But I'm locking this project A permission, but I'm letting sub projects unlocked. Means that all the content here, those workbooks will follow the project A's permission setting, but for its subfolder, in this case will be level 3 project, for all the content here, people can set whatever permissions they have, means customizable, or in other words is called owner managed permission. As you can see, subfolder is customizable because in the parent level, the project A come back, permission again. I know I jump around. I did not apply the locking to the nested project. This is a big feature. This is a feature that finally made sub-project, special project locking usable. In the past, the process was a little bit too crazy, but right now, finally it's usable. Let me do a recap on project level permission. Again, more important is at the project level, who can view or publish to this project and who is the project leader. The rest of the tab can be served as either default or will be enforced as locking. Again, 2020.1 came with a beautiful locking new feature, super flexible feature. And the parent level for cells are locked, but this locking does not apply to nested project, which is why the other project is unlocked. I can also lock director, and also I can lock the store, which is even the sub project of partner. Very, very flexible. Give you example, use case. Let's say you have 80% of your content, you want them to be exactly same, but 20% you want them to be flexible. How do you do so? Well, this is one way you can do it. Now it's doable. There's another way you can do it. Very flexible. You can achieve the same thing, different way. Tableau always give us multiple ways of getting things done. Another example, you want to have West people, West folder, the workbooks only gave to the West group. East only give to East group access control. You can lock those two subfolders with different permission setting. Use case number two, number one, those are real life use cases I grabbed from a community. As recap, is a super flexible locking permissions available right now. How to give publisher permission for the sub projects. Let's say you want to give a sub project CA publisher permission. How do you give? 4 conditions have to be met. One is that you have to give a user view permission at the sales and at the West. 3 is you give user permission publisher at the CA, and of course the user has to have a publisher side role. Project leader and the owners, those are the super users. Very important, very, very powerful. They can do almost anything. If a person in a team on vacation, dashboard needs quick change, what do? Go to the project leader. If a person left the team, but he still owns some content, what do? Ask project leaders to change their ownership. Project leaders are able to change the owners. Think about that. Then a project leader can change the owner to himself. Then he can become a new owner. Then he can do anything, everything about the content. I just list those most common ones. For you don't have to remember every single one, but just remember that project leader, owner can change the content owner and become the owner, that's it. Owner can do anything, everything. A simple way for you to grab the concept. You may ask, what is the difference between the owner versus leader? There are some differences. There are not a lot of differences. Okay. By and large, they can do almost the same thing. But for your understanding, I summarize what is the difference between those two. The key difference is at the bottom, where, of course, leader can be a group, can be multiple users. Owner is only one person. The owner can change a project owner. Leader cannot. The owner can delete a project. Leader cannot. How the project leaders are inherited from parents' project to the child project. Let's say at the parent project CA, there is owner 1, there is leader 1. And then how this owner 1, leader 1 inherit project leadership role in the subfolder. Here is how it works. If you are owner or leader of a parent project, you are automatically become leader owner of all the child projects. And of course, at CA/training, you can have a new owner leader. And then this L2, owner 2 will become project leader, of course, of its subfolder. And at each subfolder, you can have your own leader owner only. Who can create a project? Well, the top level project can only be created by admin, site, or server. But the project leader owner can create sub-projects as well. Whoever creates a project becomes the owner by default. If most of the projects are created by admins as a best practices, admins should change the owners to the requester so they can do self-service more. You don't have to hold as owner anymore. So I'll leave you the best practices. If this is too complicated for some of you, if you're a relatively new admin, I'm going to try to summarize a few key takeaways for you. Tip number one is you create a top level project and then you change the owners to the requesters. As a project leader or owner, they can add more leaders, they can create more sub-projects, and they are supposed to manage content permissions. Tip number two, log project permission wherever is possible. In the past, we complained the logging permission is not flexible. Right now, it's super flexible. Examples of logging. This is another real life example. I saw someone posted in the community a while back. I've been asking this feature. Now is possible. Now is possible. You can log project different ways. You can log project top level, different child level to meet different requirements. Another example, as a key takeaway I showed you earlier, 80/20. Okay, recap how permissions work together, side role, and then project level, who can view or publish into a project, and who is a project leader. At the project level, the workbook, data source, other rules are either default or serving as logging permission. When it's locked, all the content will follow, except you unchecked, do not apply to the nested project. At the content level, this is where truly each workbook data source flows matrix permission is controlled at, who does what. And I'm gonna have a demo for the workbook data source level. How's my timing go? I've got half of the time, which I think I'm still good. All right, let's look for examples of workbook level permission. Okay, this time I'm gonna go to project B. Let's look for flight delay permissions. This is a workbook. You look at a workbook and click dot, 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 you got a permission. At the workbook level, of course, where you gave permission to either groups or users. And now Tableau changed permission template a little bit since 2020.1. The change is that viewer template, as you can see, view template now does not include download full data. This is a great change. This is a great change, actually. Yes, you can see now the viewer permission, view permission come up to here. And then the explore permission come to here, allow people to share, download, and web editing. And of course, the publishing permission up to here. It's much more streamlined. I love this a lot better than before. And of course, admins, you'll have up to everything, set permission, so on. Strongly recommend permission setting the workbook data source level, content level, you give a view permission should be good enough, unless you really want to let people download the full data, unless you really want people to create a matrix, then you give this permission and web editing permission. Okay? But majority for the end users, give them view should be good enough. Also, this was changed a couple of releases back, where you can do a user and a group as together. Okay, used to be separate, two buttons. Now it's much easier. And I know the confusion is that there are groups, there are users. I don't know, end up with who actually has what permission. This is where this effective permission become so useful. For example, okay, I'm not quite sure what end up with publisher one's permission. I'm gonna type publisher one. It tells me publisher one, it has permission all the way here, and also tells me why. I love this. I don't know if you're able to see it. See that? See my screen. See my screen. Set permission allowed because this user is a project leader. It tells me exactly why this permission. I love it. This is a great change. Although permission one, you gave a we just gave a publish up to here, but actually the effective permission is also enclosed set permission as well. Let's say do a publisher two. See that same thing, publisher two is also because publisher two is a project leader. I'm just curious. Publisher three, nothing. It tells you why nothing, because nothing is granted. Okay. Publisher four, this guy is also, oh, this guy is the owner. Publisher four, I even don't remember. I gave him he's the owner of this workbook. See that? This is where we should teach our publishers really know how to use effective permission. So how the effective permission works behind the scene. Okay, I'm going to how this effective permission works behind the scene. You set permission at above, give whatever view, explore, whatever permissions. But how Tableau became effective permission works together. Okay. Two things, summarize for your understanding. Two things. One is that Tableau adds the privileged users permission. Of course, privileged users includes admins, project leaders, owners. Add up automatically. Second one is that Tableau take the denied rule based on side rule. Okay, the side rule deny includes side rule, certain side rule you cannot overwrite. Of course, cannot delete, cannot set a permission. The Explorer side rule cannot do those. Those are mainly two kind of additions that Tableau applies to make it effective. But again, if this is too hard for regular publishers to understand, just teach them how to use effective permission, to check user by user. Now with, I think 2020.1, they even add a side rule here. That was not available for anyone else earlier other than admins. This is a great permission change. Let's dive into a bit more. There's user, there's a group. People can assign permission on both. So how Tableau evaluate which is which? I'll give you a more simple rule. User overrides groups. Deny more like overrides unspecified or specified. If they are both groups. One group may have more permission, another group may have less. It ends up with more like sum of the permissions of each group. That will be your key takeaway. If you want to know more, I draw this flowchart together. User specifically denied, denied. User specifically allowed, allowed. Or group denied is denied. Nothing else, members allowed is allowed. Okay. Maybe this is too complicated, but take away 1 to 3 on top is your key takeaway. All right, if you are relatively new to Tableau server, you take these simple tips away. Okay, I gave you tips number 5, continue my tips. When it's permission workbooks, not views. Again, set permission for the workbook. Do not set permission for the views. Otherwise, you will get confused very soon by yourself. You don't understand what happened. The best practices for regular publishers, they should see this like permission of the view inherited from workbook. That's the way to go. Permission groups, not users. Nothing you should not use users at all. Maybe for project leader, you give user. Most cases, you should use groups. Especially for most of servers, you should sync Active Directory with your server. Then the permission change will become much easier. It can be done automatically outside Tableau without go to Tableau server, changing one by one. Tip number 7, for data source permissions, it's recommended that you publish as a separate data source. Now for data source permission, do those 2 things. One is give connect and view permission of data source only to the workbook authors and ask data users only, not your end users. Don't need to give them. Instead, when the workbook is published, making sure embedding password selected. This will simplify the permission process. That's my tip number 7. All right, move on one more topic, matrix permission. Matrix is beautiful, light, easy, and mobile ready. 2020.2 feature. It has one potential permission cascading feature that just be aware. What is permission cascading feature? Well, let's say example, one workbook is giving 3 users access, 3 end users access. One of those 3 users can potentially create a matrix to be shared with another few hundred users without the original workbook owner's approval. That is potential cascading. Tableau has valid reasons to design this way. There are valid use cases. Let's look for one step back, and I'll tell you if you're concerned of this, what you can do. Let's look for the big picture. Who can create metrics? Number 1, publisher set rule. Number 2, that user has have download full data permission of the view. Again, this is very important. This is where Tableau devs argument is about. If you're concerned of matrix permission may be given to many people, why you allow this user to download full data permission? Valid? Okay. If you're concerned of this access of this workbook, this data set, don't allow download full data. And of course, metrics has to have a place to publish back to a server. Metrics creation is actually publishing permit, is publishing process. Unlike the data-driven alert, this is a publishing. Workbook has to have password embedded, and also workbook has no filters. Only those 5 conditions are met, and then a matrix can be created. Now, we know that creating matrix is not that simple. Unlike subscriptions, unlike data-driven alert, it's a publishing process, needs a lot of things. Now, hopefully, this will help you to understand your potential cascading issue. May not be that bad, but still potential issue. If you're concerned with the matrix potential cascading issue, you can turn on and off multiple ways at multiple levels. One is at the workbook owner level. If download full date is not there, then nothing, no metrics can be created based on this workbook. That's it. When I say workbook, actually it's a view in this case, but I'm assuming the view permission is inherited from workbook. At the project level, if you log a project permission, of course, this will apply to all the content within the logged project. That's done deal, easier. And of course, at the site level, I will not recommend, but depends on your situation. If you want, Tableau does give us a more flexible way for us to turning on the metrics for the whole site or not. All right, that's all I have. Let's give a key takeaways. 1, leverage project leader for a lot more self-service. Think about it. A lot more self-service. If we know how to leverage all the project leader owners, train them, make sure they're aware of these features and leverage them. Number 2, use nested project and the log project permission wherever is possible. Now it's super flexible, very, very easy using feature. 3rd, the effective permission is very useful, especially with the side row there, okay? And teaching your publishers to use effective filters, effective permissions. From time to time, I got emails from those publishers asking me, what happened, why this user does not have this, have that? Actually, most of those, they can find out by themselves if they know where. Just a lot of education for us. Do not let matrix cascading permission behavior bite you. Be aware of this feature, and there are ways that you can do to avoid this problem, avoid this potential chaos. All right, those are the key takeaways. And if anyone has any further questions around permission, anything, of course, using community and post me an email, and also check my blog site. Oh, who am I? Marco. I'm a Tableau server admins. And also friends of mine also know me as a handyman. On the right side picture is what I built as tree house or tree deck. Very solid. Recently we upgrade the path. Beautiful. All right, that is me. Let me see if I can take a few questions before our next presenter. Let me take a few quick questions. Let me see the QA. Okay, there are not a lot of questions pending. Maybe some of those are taken care already, which is great. I saw answer 10. That's awesome. All right. Okay. With that, Andrew, why not you start to let me share? Andrew.
All right, thanks, Mark. So I was tacking some of the questions in the Q&A. So if I didn't leave you with too many, I think maybe I answered a few for you. But we
Thank
can
you.
also
Awesome.
take questions for Mark at the end. So if you think of some in the meantime, we'll all be available at the end for questions. All right, so let me go ahead and share my screen. All right, so let's get started. So I'm Andrew Kritzer, and thanks, Mark, for allowing us to come to this server meetup. We're really lucky to be part of this and have a great audience here to hear questions from. I'm a product management director at Tableau. I'm joined by Vinod, product manager at Tableau as well. And we're here to talk about Tableau licensing and specifically some of the new things that came out in 2020.3. Before we get started, just putting a standard caveat out there. In this presentation, we may make some statements about what is potentially coming in the future. This is not something that should be used in a purchasing decision, but it is just some of our thoughts and what we're thinking about. And we do that, one, to get more clarity on what you need, and also just to kind of give you a glimpse of where our head is at and where we're thinking about focusing. So with that, let's get into the presentation. Mentioned, my name is Andrew Kritzer. I've been using Tableau a really long time as a consultant in 2008, using Tableau 3.0. I was a customer presenter at TC14 in Seattle, and I really, my dreams came true when the stars aligned and I joined Tableau as a product manager in 2018. Fun fact about me is I DJ'd under the name DJ Crime Dog for a while. So sometimes my aliases on the internet go by Crime Dog. You can always connect with me on LinkedIn and message me. And then there's going to be some opportunities to connect throughout the presentation. Vinod?
All right. Hi, everyone. I'm Vinod, and I'm also a product manager here at Tableau, and I work mainly on Tableau licensing. I joined Tableau in 2017. It's almost 3 years now. And as I said, I'm part of a core services group handling Tableau licensing. And I love, I'm ramping up, I'm learning, and I also love using data wherever I can. Feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn, as well as reach to me for any feedback or talk licensing, Tableau licensing at my email.
All right, so we're really talking about, Vinod and I cover two different areas within licensing. And so I want to dive into what those areas are, and you'll see these represented in purple for the areas that I represent and green for the areas that Vinod represents. So I represent the user and role management side, which is a lot about how you can get the right user in the right role and manage those role allocations with some things like subscription licensing.
And my area is mostly license key management. We solve problems related to licensing in ephemeral devices and offline scenarios like air gap scenarios and stuff like that. And also a lot of key management problems.
Awesome. Let's talk a bit about the themes and areas of focus that we have. So one major focus is we want to make it really easy for people to get licenses when they need them. And we want to do that while saving admins time. So we don't want to have these manual processes that take a while or require bespoke management, because we want Tableau to be scalable. So those are some of the areas of focus. And to do this, we look at ways of increasing governance as well as supporting different use cases within an organization. For example, when Tableau is purchased centrally and the licensing is managed in a decentralized manner. We look at those kinds of scenarios.
Mm-hmm. And on key management teams, we kind of look at problems when Tableau footprint grows. It becomes very painful to manage your licenses inventory, track assignment, utilization, and even reclaim unused licenses. And also when Tableau desktop and Tableau Prep Builder is being used in VMs, often customers end up hitting max activation problems. So these are the type of problems that we look at in a key management licensing area.
Great. So the first part of the presentation, we're going to walk you through over the past year or so, the features that have shipped in our areas and give you a little bit of color on what they can be used for. And then we'll go into a demo of one of the latest features that launched yesterday, grant license on sign-in. And so I'll be talking about these 5 features on the left, and Vinod will talk about these 4 features on the right. And so I won't go through them right now because we'll do a slide on each. Okay. So what happens when you have a user that comes to your server and doesn't have a license? Well, before 2019.3, they would land on a screen, they would type in their authentication, and they would get an error that just says, unable to sign in. We launched a feature then that allows you to add a quick note to them before they sign in. So if there are some instructions about how your organization manages licenses, like a wiki page or a ServiceNow ticketing system, you could add that in. And in 2020.4, we're adding that same note to the unable to sign in page. So if you have single sign-on where you actually skip the login page on server, that same note will appear and help users get to where they need to go to get the license they need. Small feature, but pretty impactful for users when they're in need of a license. Along the theme of making new use cases available, we recognize that Tableau can be used inside your company, and it can also be used to work with partners like suppliers or customers. And so we launched a new capability called user visibility that lets you obfuscate users from one another within the server or within a specific site. So you could imagine having 50 suppliers that are essentially competitors using the same analytics and collaborating in some way within the site while maintaining anonymity. This is a good one for external and embedded use cases. In 2019.4, sure, it's great to get someone in a license, but what do you do if the permissions don't allow them to see the content that they need? So we added a feature called request access that routes a request to the content owner or the project owner if it's a locked project scenario that Mark mentioned. And we're looking at ways of adding some customization to this as well in the future. The next one that we launched is a feature called site role quotas. And this one is pretty self-explanatory, but imagine you wanna empower a site, and typically what you see is a site could be like the finance department or HR department. That's a common way of using sites, is to segment based upon departmental needs when data doesn't need necessarily to be shared. So imagine you have the HR department made a separate purchase. You could set a limit on the number of creators, explorers, and viewers that they can use within the server. And that's where we see this used, is mostly when you're dividing a site between multiple tenants. Vinod?
Yeah, thanks, Andrew. So in continuation, on the key management side, we've made a couple of improvements over time, and in product server messaging is one of them. Licenses getting lapsed. So this screenshot here shows messaging that appears, that's shown about expiring license keys on the licensing homepage and on TSM command line interface. Next slide, please. Okay, the next one is login-based license management. As you may already be aware, login-based license management allows creator users to use their Tableau Online or Tableau Server credentials to activate and register Tableau. this feature simplifies license management for customers to a great extent because there are no more end user product license keys needed, right? End users will simply have to sign in into Tableau and activate. And for admins, LBLM provides a dashboard to centrally track license usage, and creator seats will also automatically get reclaimed if these users are no longer needing the product. Okay, and here is a little screenshot about the feature. And just to call out, this is not a new SKU. It's not priced separately. It's included with your Tableau server subscriptions, or yeah.
So Vinod, I've used this to activate my desktop license, and it's pretty easy. I just go in, and instead of entering a license key, I click this third option here to activate by signing in, use my credentials, and that's it, right?
That's about it.
Okay.
Exactly.
So from an end user perspective, this one is super easy, and it's much easier than managing all those keys.
Yep, totally.
Awesome.
Cool. So how do I get LBLM? So LBLM was released in 2020.1, and it's the default licensing mechanism for all new Tableau Online customers, as well as existing Tableau Online customers. So if you're a Tableau Online customer, you'll need to enable it. And to use it, there is a product help documentation that covers all the instructions. Okay. If you are a Tableau on-prem server, then speak to your Tableau account rep or sales rep about onboarding your users onto LBLM. And if you are already an LBLM customer, if there is any feedback, then I'd love to hear from you. Please feel free to email me on the email that's given out. Okay, next slide, please. The next feature I'd like to highlight is it's a small feature during upgrades. In case you're using an expired key, or incorrect or invalid key, currently upgrade proceeds all the way until the end, and then it becomes a hard stop. So what we have done is we've kind of made this check earlier. We made a pre-flight check and a message right away if the key is not current on their maintenance. So this saves some time for the server admins. Okay. And the next slide, please. Yep. This feature is a new feature that's partially coming out in 2020.3. By partially, I mean we have divided this feature into 3 phases. The first phase is releasing in 2020.3. So updatable subscription licensing will solve the problems related to key exchanges during renewals or any licensing entitlement changes. What I mean by that is currently during renewals, our customers have to take new license keys and swap them out for both Tableau Server and Tableau Desktop. And if there are like hundreds and thousands of users, it is a painful experience with your end users. And this happens year over year at a minimum. So updatable subscription licensing allows you to use your existing license key itself, but then refresh it to get new licensing entitlements every year. So this is the key benefit of this feature. An added benefit for Tableau server keys is you shall be able to consolidate all the license keys that you would have into one single updatable key, and get away and eliminate the need for stacking a bunch of keys. A little disclaimer here is, as I said, for 2020.3, updatable subscription licensing will work for Tableau server keys only. And in future releases, we're going to make it work for Tableau Desktop and Tableau Prep products, and also bring in a couple of enhancements. If there is feedback or if there is interest in knowing more, please feel free to reach out to me on the email provided, or you could as well type updatable subscription licensing in the chat and we'll get back to you.
Great, thanks Vinod. So a couple more one more feature that's just come out that we'll do our deep dive on is grant license on sign-in. which really is kind of a game changer for the user experience of getting a license and saves admins a lot of time. So I won't go too deep into this because we'll go into it in our deep dive. But just a glimpse of what's happening in the future and where I'm interested in and Tableau is interested in your feedback. So today in Tableau, there are a limited set of roles available. You could be a viewer, you could be an explorer, you could be a creator, and then there's some administrator roles. What we believe is that allowing admins to customize the capabilities that are allowed within a role would be a really powerful feature. And let me just provide some examples that we hear from customers about this. So one example is a limited site admin, an admin that they can do administrative work, but they respect permissions. So you could imagine an admin that can do some management, but not go and access the HR data within a site. We also hear about unlicensed site admins, an admin who can do some management of their site, but doesn't consume a license or access data or visualizations. A third one that we hear, particularly in the financial sector, is limiting the ability to download across the entire site. So this could include the Tableau workbooks, the Tableau data sources, or data, the CSVs and Excel documents, or even images. So we're interested in what kind of granularity your company or your company may be interested in terms of limiting download. Finally, if you have an Explore can publish license, you can publish from desktop pretty much anything that you can create in desktop. There is no limitation there today. So some organizations would prefer to have Explorers only publish based upon published data sources when using desktop. And so we're looking at how we can create some limitations around Explore for better governance. Just like Vinod, if you're interested in providing feedback, type custom roles in the chat. We're always interested in talking to customers and going a little deeper here. Okay, with that, let's jump into grant license on sign-in. This is an exciting feature that we launched in 2020.3, and it addresses a real licensing challenge that we've seen in our customers. So let's walk through a scenario. So we know that when you're rolling out Tableau to your organization, it takes a while to change the culture. It takes a while to make everyone aware of how they can use data. And we know that not all users adopt right away. And so if you wanted to start to roll out Tableau to a group of doctors, let's say, you don't know which ones to pick to grant licenses to. And you're really forced to grant licenses to all of them. And what ends up happening is some of those doctors, for example, decide to log in, get the value of data, value of Tableau, and some of them don't. And so you end up with a set of doctors who are using Tableau and a set of doctors who are not. Both of them are consuming licenses, and some of those licenses are wasted. So that's why we launched Grant License on Sign-In. Unlicensed users can get automatically assigned the correct license when they sign in. And this means that licenses go to those who actually use Tableau Server. How does it work? An administrator has to enable a group to have this feature on. So it's off by default, but any group can be enabled to have grant role on sign-in. When that user signs in, Tableau will look at the user's group membership and determine their site role based upon that, and check whether a license is available. If it's available, they're granted a license instantly, and they're on their way to their Tableau data journey. If a license is not available, they'll get the same experience that they have today, where unfortunately they can't log in. So where can an admin go to grant role on sign-in? So the feature is available when you're importing an Active Directory group. It's available when you're creating a local group or even managing the all users local group. And it can also be done on existing groups by adjusting the minimum site role in the action menu. So I'll demo this in a second. Vinod, do you want to tell us a little bit about how we could combine this feature with login-based license management?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is a pro tip here. So you could use grant license on sign-in feature in combination with LBLM feature to maximize benefits on your Tableau investments, right? So you could assign a group of users in a particular group, in a particular role, and when they activate Tableau desktop using LBLM, the users who most need the expensive creator licenses are able to get a license, a creator seat. Now, the benefit with LBLM is it'll help you optimize your licenses that are in use. What I mean by that is, as the users that have grabbed creator seats and are making use, there will be some users who may not need the creator seats or Tableau access anymore. So with LBLM, you can reclaim licenses from users who don't need the creator seats anymore. And these licenses can be used by other users in the group again. So that's the benefit of using grant license on sign-in with LBLM.
So how this would work is a user would install Tableau Desktop, they would click activate product using LBLM, and then when they sign in, their site role would change from unlicensed to creator. And that's it. So let's jump to the demo of grant license on sign-in. Okay. So here I am in Tableau server, and I'm managing all sites. So I'm looking at my overall view of my server, and I've filtered on a particular user. This is me. I'm a member of one site, and I'm currently unlicensed because I'm unlicensed on that site. The site that I'm a member of is called Tableau. And if I go to the Tableau site, let's see where I am. There's a lot of people here. Okay, here we go. So I'm right here. I've never signed in before. So I'm unlicensed. I've never signed into this site before. And if I go to my groups, this is a large organization. This is actually using the Active Directory of Tableau. So I can see, a large group of finance folks, a large group of field sales, a couple field marketing, accounting. And what I want to do is imagine that I'm a member of the field sales team. So I'll go ahead and add myself to this group. Okay, so I've been added. Now, this group is an Active Directory group. So it could, for example, like the sales operations group, whenever this group synchronizes with Active Directory, it grants every user a creator license. But I have something different set up for the field sales team. I have grant role on sign-in enabled. So here, I can go in, and if I didn't want to grant these users a license, I could check this to unlicensed. But actually, what I'm going to do is say, for anyone that's part of field sales, grant them the license of Explorer can publish when they sign in. Actually, let me hold off. Before I do that, I'm going to jump to a user. So here I am in Tableau, trying to log in for the first time. Let's see if I got my password right. So this is the error message that I would get if I wasn't a part of a group with grant license on sign-in. The user account is not active. For help, contact your Tableau server admin. And that's one of the reasons we added the sign-in note. So need a license, go to ServiceNow. With this new feature, I can enable grant license on sign-in. And when I do that, I am still unlicensed. So here I am, still unlicensed. Now, if I go log in again, here I am, licensed as an Explorer with the last sign-in date of right now. So think about what happened before, where I might have had to go to find the server admin or file a ticket, wait to get access to data, have that server or site admin grant me a license, and then finally get access to this scenario where I've whitelisted 99 people that are part of the field sales team to get a license whenever they feel like they need it. We've really reduced the friction for users, saved the admins a lot of time, and we've just provided a better experience overall, and allowing people to see and understand data with fewer hurdles. So how do we recommend that, as leaders in your organization, how do we recommend that you use this new feature? Well, my recommendation is pretty simple. Add anyone that you think should be eligible to use Tableau into a group and give them maybe a viewer license when they sign in. This will enable you to reduce all of the friction for links getting shared around and who's allowed to see and who can get access to Tableau. And then manage your permissions using these larger groups as well. So there's no reason that Tableau should be off limits when you have essentially this feature, because you can slowly scale up your license usage. And if you need more licenses, you can go out and buy those as it scales. So let me jump back to the presentation here. That's our demo. And I think at this point, we'll get into Q&A, both for Mark's presentation on permissions in the beginning and Vinod in my presentation on licensing. I want to thank everyone for joining this call. And yeah, really thank you. And let's jump into questions.
That's great. Thank you very much, Andrew and Vinod, for your awesome presentation demo. Let's do our favorite QA part. We do have another about 25 minutes QA. That's awesome. All right. Why not we all start looking at the questions from the top. Okay, for those who have new questions, please submit QA button. Submit the questions by clicking the QA button. Okay, we're gonna answer from the top. Andrew, the first one is yours. You'd like to answer live.
Yeah, so I think you talked about data roles and metrics within the permission tab. These are different types of content. Data roles is part of the semantic knowledge about your company. So a good data role might be defining all the SKUs that you have and calling those products. And that can be used in things like Ask Data and Prep to better prepare your data and make it cleaner. So both of those are stored in projects and can have permissions.
All right, next question is Venkat asking questions around a role level security on groups. Every time when we add a new group, we are forced to update group filter formula that at data source level. I totally agree. Let me share, since Venkat is asking this question, let me share overall role level security, because I do have those slides. I skipped them. I wanted to make sure we have enough time. I just want to share a little bit. Where's my sharing button is gone, or I don't know how to share anymore. Oh, share my screen. Okay. The question is around the role level security. Let me answer the role level security a little bit more in a bigger, higher level. Okay, for those who are relatively new on the role level security, yes, Tableau has features allow us to do a role level security on the same workbook data source. Each user sign in, see different data set. Okay, there are multiple ways of implementing role level security, but most common ways are the three or combination of all among those three. Is a member of, username, or contents. I see most people are using one or two of three together, make it work. Now, tips, tricks to give when you use is a member of, dealing with a group. You have to have the group to be created already there. Otherwise, you'll get errors. So my tip for those who will need to change a group often is that you can create a group with no member. You can create, for example, today use 5 groups. You know later on you're going to use another 5. You can create 10 groups on the server, and in the calculation formula, you can use all the 10 groups, but some of those groups may not have members. Later on, you can change the members of those groups without touching the whole workbook data source anymore. That's one tip I see people using. Many for Venkat's question. What's the trade-off between those methods? Using a group is a member of is good, easier, most easier way to go, but it's harder when you have to manage 30 plus groups. Manage the members of those groups become kind of difficult. When that is the case, then probably you want to use username feature. Or you can, of course, use the content. But content needs more data level preparation. Okay, I'll stop here. This is mainly for the Venkat's question. Sorry, I gave you a long question. I think this is a good talk. This is a good topic, role level security.
Awesome. So just to answer a couple questions, one I just answered in the chat was around request access and can it be routed to ServiceNow? It's something that we're looking into. Right now, it's an email that goes to the content owner or the project owner, but it's certainly something we're looking into is allow you to customize that, similar to how you can customize the sign-in note or the error when someone doesn't have a license. I see a couple questions around like concurrent licensing and ability to unlicense. So this feature doesn't have a change in how users are demoted. I see some great conversation about it in the chat as well. Those kinds of decisions in compliance with our EULA depend on the organization that you have. And there are some reasons why we wouldn't want to have just like an automatic demotion. One would be subscriptions. So subscriptions don't require you to sign in very frequently, but they do still provide a lot of value. So you know, I have a blog post coming out with Vinod in about 2 weeks, where we basically don't recommend that you you take your boss's boss out of getting those subscriptions. That might get us in a little bit of trouble. What other questions do you see, Mark or Vinod?
Yeah, I see. Sorry, I see a couple of them on LBLM, so happy to answer. So LBLM is LBLM related to a master key? No, it's different than master key, and we encourage using LBLM instead of master key because of all of the known problems associated with master key. And can we track desktop licenses usage for perpetual license type as well? So just to clarify, LBLM requires customers to meet certain prerequisites in order to use this feature. And one of them is like customers will have to be on role-based subscription or role-based offering models. That is, they need to have a creator model in order to make use of this feature. So no, there is no retrofitting or ability to track perpetual license types in via this dashboard.
Okay, maybe I'll take on the Ginger's question. For the question is, if someone does not have access to view a project or sub-project, will they see the projects in the site map? The answer is no. If they cannot, if they don't have a view permission to the project, they just cannot see the project. The project does not exist for this user. And there's a similar question. Actually, I will jump ahead Alex because it's related. I left this Alex question because this is a very good question. Alex, I'll jump to Alex's question. The question is, if a user does not have a view to a project A, can the user still have access to the Vs published to a project A? The answer is yes. Again, the user does not have a project level permission to view the project level, for example, but the user is able to access a workbook published in the project. That's by design, because each workbook data source has its own independent permission, independent with the project level. The relationship between project permission versus workbook permission is more like for unlocked project, the workbook permission gets default from project level permission. That's all, just default when published. And then the owner can change the permission at any time. So really the project level permission doesn't matter for the workbook published to the project, unless it's locked. It's locked, just not only default, just enforced, that's all. But by and large, still independent permission of the workbook versus project level. Just be clear. I think Alex's question is very good for this. Answer live already done.
Mark, I got one question on how does the sign-in note work?
Yeah.
So I'm just going to go ahead and demo that real quick. So here I am logged in as a server admin. If I go down to manage all my sites and then to settings, I have this sign-in customization here where I can say whatever I want. I can say server admins are the greatest. Contact us here. And I can enter a URL or a mail to or something like that. Go ahead and save the setting. And when I go into if I'm a new user, I'll see in the bottom here, server admins are the greatest, contact us here. And this will also appear on if you're using single sign-on or SAML to skip or OpenID to skip the sign-in note, the sign-in screen, you'll see it on the unable to sign in screen starting in 2020.4.
Okay, that's great. Alex has another good common asked question about the content deletion. Can a user delete own content but not created by someone else? The answer is yes and no. Depends on user's permission. The owner, of course, can always delete its own content, no matter what. Owner is a special privilege, okay? But other than the owner, the project leader can also delete all the content within the project. Let's say Mark is a project leader. There is a project published by John in my project. I am a project leader. I'm able to delete John's workbook. Okay. That is by design, because the project leader is also the privileged user for all the content within the project. And Alex has another piece of question asking about override permission. I'm not very clear what it means, override permission. Owner can decide whatever permission is. If you want to change the permission set for the content owned by others, you have to have permission to either as a project leader, or you have a permission to set the permission for others' content. Otherwise, you cannot. Hopefully this is clear. What other? A bunch of other questions. I think some of those are answered.
Yeah.
Vinod,
So,
yeah.
yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Sorry, I can't hear. Are you, hello?
Yeah, we can hear you.
There is a question. Can you assign grant rule at the sign-in to multiple existing groups?
Yes, you can use it. So you can use it on local groups. You can use it on all users. You can use it on Active Directory groups. And what happens is, let's say I'm part of a group where you assign me as a viewer, as a minimum site role with this feature turned on. And I'm also a part of another group where you're assigning me as an explorer with this feature turned on. When you sign in, Tableau will look at the maximum of those two of the groups that you're a member of and grant you that license. So in that case, that example I gave, I would be granted an explorer license because I'm part of two groups that are both granting it.
So there's one more question about that I'd like to answer. This is about updatable subscription licensing. So the question is, oops, as I scroll, does the updatable licensing never change? So yes. So once you get once you get your licensing keys swapped during renewals with an updatable key, that will be permanent with you, and any future update, entitlement updates or renewals or any licensing changes will all be on your existing updatable key itself.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm going to pick up, answer some of the questions for the permissions. There is a question. Andrew, feel free to just answer live once you're done, so we can close those questions in the list.
Sounds good.
Question addressed to me at Mark. User is not in other AD group, but only one. Okay, moving a little bit. Where's my question? Sorry, I have to read again. It's okay. I'm trying to get a question.
Oh, I think this has to do with, when an AD group is removed, is the user removed? Or when a user leaves that AD group, do they then get removed from the site?
Yeah, the group can be moved, but user will not, right?
Right.
I think there are a couple of reasons why you don't want to remove the user. One is that user can be in other group, who knows? Second one, the user may not be removable if the user owns any content. Make sense? There was also another question around this, similarly about, is any, from wrong, is there automatic way to remove all unlicensed users on the server? I try to delete them, okay? But we all know that if the user owns the content, we cannot delete them.
Right, and there is a new REST API function to remove users and reassign their content at the same time. That's coming out in 2020.3 as well.
Really?
So,
okay, that's good to know.
Yeah.
But how do you know who you assign to?
That's depends on what your business practice is. If you want to reference who their manager is, or if you want to reference, if you want to make them all reassigned to an admin or to a dummy user, there's a lot of different options. But we're basically providing the capability and then looking forward to seeing how people want to reassign it.
The way I do this is that I'm holding the project leaders accountable for. I'm always chasing the project leaders. Ask leaders to take actions. Ask project leaders to assign the new owners to their teammates. Those are good questions.
Yeah, these are great questions. Raj Kiran has a question around when you provide view rights on a project, will users be able to see dashboards published under the same project? Yes. View rights to the project gives you the ability to view, so long as actually it's a locked project. So if it's a view, if you're giving view rights on the project and view rights on the workbooks within the project, then it will show you them. But if you're letting someone see the project but not see any workbooks within it, you can configure that as well. So I guess the answer is it depends.
I'll take one.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry. Okay, sure. I see a question from Ali Sharif. Hope I'm pronouncing the name right. When a license is granted during sign-in, can we set a duration so that it will be deactivated if the user doesn't log in? So yes, there is a way to set the duration. It's via a parameter called ATR duration. So what it does is, by default, it's 14 days, but then if you want to minimize it, you can set it to as low as 4 hours and as high as up to 3 months. So what it does is, once the user activates Tableau Desktop or Tableau Prep, and if it's not using for that duration specified in ATR duration, then that creator seat will automatically get reclaimed on the server. So yeah, so hope that answers the question.
I will take on Robert's question. The question is, we have noticed that when the AD group is subscribed to a dashboard and a new user is added to an AD group, in order for the new user to be subscribed, the group has to be removed and then re-added. Yes, that is expected behavior. The feature subscribed group is not truly subscribed group, it's subscribed users in the group by that time when the group was added to the subscriptions. Is there any easy way to do this? I don't know. But also on the other side, I'm also concerned with a true subscription group feature because I'm not a fan of subscriptions. I'm hoping that Tableau server will be used for people to interact with the content dashboard on the server, not too many subscriptions. I don't want my Tableau server become an email busting machine. That's just Mark's opinion.
All right, one more couple of questions. I see interesting ones. Do you still need to uninstall desktop to release the license from one machine to the next? When people leave the company, help desk doesn't always know that they need to uninstall Tableau. So if you use LBLM, then as I said, with this parameter called ATR duration, you can actually reclaim your licenses even if the employee quits and even if it's not explicitly being deactivated. So what that means is if the ATR duration is 14 days and the employee quits on day 1 after activating or day 2 after activating Tableau, in the his creator state will get reclaimed automatically as soon as the 14th day is over. Okay. I see one more question from Jeff Razy. Do we always have to manage LBLM using AD for a minimum role requirement? So I believe the question is, do we always have to use LBLM with grant license on sign-in? No, you don't have to, but then it's a best practice. It's an awesome way to club these features together so that you maximize your benefits of your number of expensive creator seats.
Yeah, and one way to really put these together, I know there's a question of can we demo them together? I don't have one ready at the moment, but one way to do this is to have a separate site that's called your creator activation site. And when when desktop users want to activate their desktop license, it can be managed on one site to activate. And maybe the other site can keep everyone as an explorer, can publish. And then you can have some options there. Or you can create a script to synchronize their license across those two sites as well.
Okay, I'd like to pick up a question from Caesar. Can we hide tabs in the workbook, but still keep the permissions for each view to be inherited from the workbook? I think the answer is yes, automatically. When the permission is inherited from a workbook, it inherited to all the views, even includes the views that are hidden. Soon as you update the workbook, make the view unhidden, then that's it. The users will see the view right away without touching any permissions. So I think it is there, although the users cannot see the view because it's hidden.
Okay, I can take two more questions. So one of the questions from Prasanna Jaye. Prasanna is, does LVLM work with LDAP or AD, LDS groups? Yes, it can work with any form of those activation methods. Sorry, activation directories. Active directory, sorry. There's one more question. Is LVLM compatible with VDI solutions? So from Dan's side, yes, LVLM does work for virtual machine scenarios and VDI machines as well. And a tip there is, if you're using on a virtual machine, if you're having your end users, if you're having your desktop, Tableau desktop and prep users on a virtual machine, then a tip here is to set the ATR duration as low as possible. Like a couple of customers that I've worked with, they set it to about 8 hours. So end of the day, their creator seats get reclaimed, and then the next day, the user can again activate and grab a new creator seat.
Okay, from there, let's end on a really important question. When is the next virtual server meeting?
Yeah, actually I have not scheduled yet. We try to do it every month. I'm also trying to hear from audience what things you are interested in knowing more.
Awesome.
This permission is my favorite. I know that a lot of new admins, always good to know more about the permissions, help us make our job more effective to understand more permissions. I'm more thinking maybe some kind of automation, more effective server admin overall topic next month, or next 2 months. But reach out to me, Mark Wu, if you have any good topic to share, or if you wanted to hear more from this forum for next month or next couple of months. Thank you. Thank you very much for your participation, and awesome. Andrew and Vinod, thank you for your awesome presentation demo.
Awesome. Yeah. Thanks, Mark.
Likewise. Great. Yep.
This will conclude our webinar today. Have a great day, everyone. Stay home, stay safe. Bye.
Okay. Bye, all.